It's 6:58 on a Thursday morning and you're standing in the break room at Halbrook Logistics, waiting for a pot of coffee that's always either too hot or too old. Your badge is clipped to your belt. Warehouse Coordinator. Same title you've had for 6 years. Your car is parked in the third row, the same spot you've had since you started. A 2011 Honda Civic with 141,000 miles and a crack in the windshield that's been there so long you've stopped noticing it. Your paycheck lands every other Friday, $1,940 after taxes, and 2 nights ago, on your phone, in bed, in the dark, you watched a number cross a line it had never crossed before. Your brokerage account grew by $2,116 last month. Your job paid you $1,940 every 2 weeks. For the first time, the money that isn't you, the money that doesn't clock in, doesn't wear a badge, doesn't stand in line for burnt coffee, made more than the money that is. Nobody in this break room knows that. You don't know it yet, but this is the moment everything about how you think about work quietly starts to change. Not the job, not the badge, not the car. You. Rewind 6 years. You're 24. Rent is $875 for a 1-bedroom above a laundromat that hums through the floor at midnight. Your paycheck is $1,240 every 2 weeks, and by the time rent, the car payment, and groceries are gone, there's usually $180 left before the next one arrives. A guy named Derek trains you your first week. He's 27, works forklift certifications like they're a personality, and drives a truck he leases every 3 years because, in his words, why would I want to own something that just gets old? You don't judge him. He's not reckless. He just spends the way most people around you spend, like the paycheck is the whole story. One afternoon, an older coordinator named Priya watches you eat a granola bar at your desk instead of going out for lunch again. You saving for something? She asks. Trying to build a cushion, you say. Car's making a noise I don't like. She nods, types something on her phone, and slides it across the desk. A brokerage app, already downloaded on hers. $40 a week, she says. You won't feel it. In 10 years, you won't recognize your life. You don't say anything. It sounds like the kind of thing people say without meaning it. But that Friday, you set up an automatic transfer anyway. $40 every week into an index fund you don't fully understand yet. 3 weeks later, the noise in your car turns into a $640 repair bill. Your stomach drops when you see the invoice. You almost cancel the transfer. You don't. You just eat more granola bars for a while. By the end of that year, the account holds $1,940. It isn't much, but it's the first time in your adult life that a number existed that Derek's leased truck couldn't touch. 2 years pass, nothing happens. That's not a summary. That's the actual texture of this part of your life. You get a raise to $56,000. You bump the transfer to $150 a week without really deciding to. It just becomes the amount that leaves before you can miss it. Derek gets a new truck, then a boat he uses 4 times. He's not stupid. He works hard. He's generous with his time. He just measures progress in things he can park in a driveway. You measure it differently, though you couldn't explain how. Not yet. Priya retires that spring. Before she leaves, she says one more thing, almost as an afterthought, while packing a box of desk plants. The market's going to scare you eventually. When it does, don't touch it. You nod like people nod at advice they assume they'll remember. There's no dramatic scene here. No windfall. No crash. Just Tuesdays. Just $150 leaving your account before you can think about it, landing in a fund with a name you'd struggle to spell out loud. By 26, the account crosses $28,400. Nobody congratulates you. There's nothing to announce. Your car still ticks past 100,000 miles. Your apartment still hums at midnight. The only thing different is a number in an app you check less and less. That's the part nobody tells you about this stage. It's supposed to feel boring. If it feels exciting, you're probably doing something wrong. At 27, the account crosses $50,000 and something changes. You start checking it. Not obsessively, but when your phone buzzes with a market headline, you open the app now instead of scrolling past it. Then, in March, it happens. The market drops 19% in 6 weeks. Your $71,000 becomes $58,000 in a stretch of days that feel much longer than they are. Derek, over lunch, says he pulled his 401k contributions down to zero. Why keep feeding something that's shrinking? He says. It's not a dumb question. It's the question almost everyone asks at this exact number. You think about Priya packing her desk plants. Don't touch it. You don't touch it. You do something almost harder. You keep the $150 going into a fund that's worth less every week you add to it. It feels, some Fridays, like setting money on fire. 6 months later, the account is back to $84,000. A year after that, it crosses $100,000, a number you used to think belonged to other people, older people, people with different lives than yours. That same month, a promotion opens up. Shift supervisor, an extra $6,000 a year, and a truck allowance, since the role means driving between 2 facilities. You think about a new truck. You sit in the dealership's online configurator for 11 minutes one night, adding leather seats you'll probably never notice again in 6 months. You close the tab. Not because you can't afford it. You can, easily now. Because somewhere between the crash and the recovery, you started to understand what Priya meant. The number isn't the important part. What the number lets you keep not spending is. At 29, something happens that you don't fully register until weeks later. You're doing your quarterly check-in, a habit now, not a chore, and you notice the account grew by $9,380 in 3 months. Your take-home pay, after the promotion, is $3,240 a month. You do the math twice because the first time seems wrong. The account grew more in 1 quarter than you brought home in a month. It isn't every quarter. The market doesn't work like a metronome, but it happens again 5 months later, and then again the following spring, until it stops being a surprising exception and starts being something closer to a pattern. Your car, still the Civic, now with a new alternator and 163,000 miles, needs a $1,100 repair that fall. 3 years earlier, that number would have sat in your chest for a week. This time, you pay it from checking without opening the brokerage app at all. That's the crossover, not a single dramatic day. A slow realization that the money you didn't spend has started doing something you never could. Working every hour, every weekend, every night you're asleep, without a badge, without a shift, without asking for a raise. Your friend Nate, who runs a small contracting company and drives a truck twice the size of Derek's old one, tells you at a barbecue that business is the best it's ever been. He's not lying. His revenue really is up. But so is his line of credit, and so is the size of the payment on the truck. And so, quietly, is the amount he needs the business to keep performing just to stay even. You don't say any of that to him. You just notice, for the first time, that looking successful and being financially free might be 2 completely different things wearing the same clothes. At 31, your manager offers you the district role. Bigger title, $14,000 more a year. Relocation to a facility 90 minutes away. 2 years earlier, you'd have said yes before he finished the sentence. Instead, you ask for a week to think about it, and during that week, you do something you've never done before. You calculate what your investments alone would need to cover if you stopped working entirely. They wouldn't cover it. Not yet, not close, but they'd cover 8 months. Maybe 10 if you were careful. 8 months you didn't have 3 years ago. 8 months that quietly changed the entire tone of the conversation with your manager, because now you're choosing this job, not depending on it. You turn down the district role, not out of pride, because the 90-minute drive would cost you something the extra money couldn't buy back: time and the version of your life you'd built around not needing more. That winter, your sister calls about a car repair she can't cover. $780, timing belt, the kind of bill that used to ruin your whole month. You send it before she finishes explaining. You don't think about it again. Derek, meanwhile, is still working overtime most weekends to cover the truck and the boat. You don't say anything. He's happy mostly. That's the strange part. There's no scene where he learns a lesson. Some people never do, and it doesn't ruin their lives. It just means their freedom looks different than yours, if it comes at all. At 32, the account crosses $340,000. Your salary is $71,000. For the first time, you notice the growth in an average year is starting to approach what you earn in one. The Civic finally dies that spring, not dramatically, just an engine that finally says no. You buy a 3-year-old Accord in cash, the kind of purchase that would have terrified you a decade ago and now barely registers. You don't upgrade further than that. Not because you can't, because you've learned that the version of you who kept buying granola bars instead of eating out is the same version who's sitting here now, and you're not in a hurry to become someone else. Here's what nobody tells you about this stage. It gets quieter, and quiet isn't always comfortable. At 33, your account crosses $600,000. You tell almost no one. Not because you're ashamed, because you've noticed what happens when you do. A cousin at Thanksgiving asks for a loan the week after you mention a good year in the market. An old friend from high school gets strange and short with you over text for a month for reasons neither of you say out loud. You start editing yourself. Not lying, just leaving things out. It's the first cost that has nothing to do with money. There's another one, smaller but stranger. At work, you're still the same coordinator turned supervisor in the same Accord, wearing the same 3 work shirts on rotation. A new hire, 23, assumes you're barely getting by and jokes about it once in the break room. You laugh along? You don't correct him. Somewhere in that laugh is the realization that looking modest and being financially free are, to almost everyone around you, indistinguishable, and that most of them will never know which one you actually are. And underneath both of those is a quieter fear you didn't expect. The fear of losing it. Not recklessly. You're not tempted to gamble it away. It's subtler than that. Some nights you check the account not out of habit, but out of something closer to disbelief, half expecting the number to have been a mistake all along. Priya's sentence comes back to you again, years later, differently than you remembered it. You won't feel it. In 10 years, you won't recognize your life. You thought she meant the money. She might have meant this, the version of you sitting in a quiet apartment at 33, aware that the hardest part was never reaching the number. It was learning to live inside a life that changed on paper long before it changed anywhere else. It's 6:58 on a Thursday morning again, 9 years after Priya slid her phone across your desk. You're standing in the same break room, waiting for coffee that's still either too hot or too old. Your badge is still clipped to your belt. Your car in the lot is newer now, but it's not the point, and it never really was. Your paycheck lands every other Friday, the same as it always has. But last month, your investments grew by $4,900 more than that paycheck did. Quietly, without asking your permission, without needing you in this building at all. You're not here because you have to be. You worked that out somewhere around $340,000 in a decision that looked, from the outside, exactly like every other Tuesday. Derek walks in, still talking about a new truck. You smile and mean it. He's not wrong to want what he wants. You just wanted something you couldn't put in a driveway. The crack in your old windshield is long gone, along with the car it belonged to. But you still remember exactly what it looked like. The same way you still remember $40 leaving your account on a Friday when $40 was the difference between comfortable and not. That's the part that never shows up in the number. The $40 mattered more than the $600,000 does now. Not because it was worth more, but because it was the first proof that the direction you were moving in was the right one. You finish your coffee. You clock in anyway. Not because the job needs you, because today, you choose it. If this story made you think differently about the difference between the money you earn and the money that starts earning for you, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like this one. And I'm curious, at what number do you think work stops being something you have to do and starts being something you choose? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.